It's actually been a while since I've played Root, and I really, really want to get back to the table. But my next catch up is with friends, so 5 friends who are a bit more casual. Maybe I need to wait a little bit longer because sometimes finding the right game for the right group can be a bit tricky. There's a bit of a balance. And to talk about that, I've got from Meeple University, Tarrant and Stella. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Indeed.
We were talking a little bit before the show, before the record, that maybe you've played more games than, like 95% of people in the world, as, content creators who have done a lot of reviews and learned to play videos, because Meeple University is a great place to find all that. Can you tell me about your experience with gaming and, trying to find the right game for the right group?
You're very kind, by the way. We host fortnightly board game meetup, and we have different friends that play different games. So, of course, our friends, we know kind of like things that they like, but when somebody comes to our meetup group, for example, or somebody that we're trying to introduce, or have you played board games, there's a set of questions that I usually ask. First one, have you played it? Yes, no, okay. What's the most complex game you played? And then they would either say Catan, or they would say Root. If they say Root, it will be, all right, you'll be good with Great Western Trail. So, or like, I'll be like just trying to ask questions before throwing something like Root there. Sorry, you say Root, now I've got Root. Great example.
It's in your eye line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fruit and food chain magnate. They're the two. One of those two is going to be your top end comparison point.
Yeah, just asking lots of questions and what have you been enjoying? What sort of games you enjoy? So, okay, so it was like, what the last game you played? Like, depending on how complex it is. And then, okay, Catan, I say, okay, do you enjoy that? You like that sort of game? What other games you've been enjoying? Okay, I like Catan, I like Splendor. All right, how about Ticket to Ride, for example, right? It's like the similar level, or could be a little bit below and above, and that's usually a safe bet.
Because I guess if we're using heavier games, Food Chain Magnet, Root, Guide Project, or any of those sort of bigger games, they're going to be okay with, okay, here's a half an hour teach.
Yeah.
And it's a complex game, but you'll be able to figure it out. It's going to take about half an hour, 40 minutes to learn to teach.
Yeah.
If someone's played Catan or Ticket to Ride, and then you go, oh, this is a half an hour teach. We're not going to start the game for half an hour. There's a lot of rules.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot of people who are just not going to be interested in doing it, and that's fine.
Yes.
But like, I guess it is that thing of like, how do you sort of try and gauge it, the right level for the right people?
Yeah.
I do find that to be challenging. I think they are sensible questions to ask, to go for those. Catan, Scythe. Catan and Scythe are 2 good comparison points, I think, because it's something that most people would have played from an entry-level standpoint or a gateway standpoint. And Scythe, I have this theory, it's everyone's most complicated game the first time they play it, but then it drops down that chart a bit. I personally find it hard with the directness of those questions though, because they can sound a little gatekeepy as well, I think. And what sort of games have you been enjoying, and what are the more complex games you play without mentioning them is probably the best way to approach those conversations, I think.
For this show, I've been sort of trying different segments. I remember one time I was thinking about a sort of a chain of like, how do you get from here to here in board game like levels?
Nice.
And like if you wanted to play Twilight Imperium, how would you work up to it? And then there's sort of, as I was thinking about it, it's like, sure, there are certain games where you are working up to it in terms of mechanics or something like that. So Dune Imperium, that maybe you want to play a normal deck builder first, maybe you want to play a normal worker placement, then you put them together.
Yeah.
But then it's also, you don't have to. Like someone could be like their favorite game, So Clover and Just One and lots of word games, and that might just be all they want to play, and that is 100% fine.
Yeah.
I've got game groups with friends who it is more casual focused, and board games are sort of the social lubricant, so to speak, and that's great fun.
Yeah.
And then I've got other game groups who are like, okay, we're playing this legacy game, and we're going to meet up every fortnight, and we're going to be, we're taking it seriously, seriously. And it is finding the right game for the right group, because that's what's going to bring the most fun, and what people
Yeah.
are comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. Yeah, I know. I certainly one trap I know I fall into sometimes is when you get a game that is it's hobby, but it's light, but it's not as light as you realise. There's certainly been a couple times things like a Libertalia, or to some extent Arceus Society. Those are both Palamoris, but those are. He's perfect at this sort of Gateway Plus level of game, but it actually has quite
Yeah.
a lot more in it than I often remember.
It's
And then
gamers
I-
gateway, gamers light games, but not gateways light games.
Well, I think it's also we have the shorthand of having, like, as Juniper is a good example of that. If you played deck builders and you played worker placement before, it's okay, cool. We just it's this element coming together. Okay, cool.
You can
If you
say
have
this
area
is a
control.
deck. You can say this is a deck builder, and that resolves potentially 10 minutes
Yeah.
of explanation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you,
yeah,
which also
Area
the,
control.
yeah, which is also the benefit of board games is they're building off each other.
Yeah,
So, although that means that they're improving on things from other games, but it also means you've got that shorthand of learning it. Of, as you said, it's a deck builder. That's the 10 minutes of that. This it's a deck builder, but you don't shuffle the deck. It's Aeon's End. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And you have that way of getting into the game a bit more.
That's absolutely right. Like when you have enough games that you've played, or you know enough games, like it's like this, but this, plus this, plus this. Oh, there's a game, this plus this, but it's just like a shortcut way, not cheating, a shortcut way.
Do you find that, because obviously teaching is a big part of Meeple University, do you find that you have that to draw upon when you're doing your videos, or do you have to really start from this person might not have played any games?
Let Tarrant just answer that.
It usually depends on the context. I think when I've taught games that are just deck builders, particularly with lighter themes, and they're clearly pitched at a more gateway level, I'll go through it in full detail. Like a summer camp, for example. That's
Phil Walker Harding.
Phil Walker Harding designing what could essentially be anyone's first deck builder. But it means, explaining the full concept of deck building, whereas if I were doing Dune, I would pre-assume that...
They know that what's deck building.
Yeah.
yeah.
Last question. Next Wednesday, you're going to or the Wednesday after, whatever your next game group is. What's the first game you wanna play?
We'll find out the Monday before, depending what game we receive. No, not really. Not always.
Often we will bring, because we do through our content creation stuff, we're usually playing 3 or 4 new games a week. So often it will depend on what we're looking at this week and if there is something that is
Suitable.
light enough to teach over dinner. So we won't have heard of the game that we're playing on the Wednesday that follows when this airs.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that's an interesting experience going in. That it's always going to be a new game. It's something that maybe you've just learned. Then you're sort of trying it with people that you're familiar with, but maybe haven't played too many games with. So it's sort of a unique experience as well. And because that's the excitement / burden of being the content creator of that, you do have that sort of chain of new games to go through. The next game thing I'm going to is at a friend's house who has a small table. And so that it becomes a consideration.
That's true.
That's like, I can't have something that's going to be a massive table hog.
Herd mentality.
Okay, I'll have to check it out, Stella.
Yes, please do.
But thank you both for coming down and having a chat about finding the right game for the right group. And I guess that the compromise that comes with that. Thank you very much, and check out Meeple University.